This is the last slide that I'll show you in this video. This slide is just showing a side-by-side comparison of the two methods for finding the standard error. On this slide, I'm showing you the work for finding the standard error for the sample size of 2 and the sample size of 3 using both methods. If I wanted to find the standard error for the sample size of 2, one way I could do it is by sorting the population into all possible samples of 2, and then calculating the mean of each sample, like I did here, and then calculating the standard deviation of all of the sample means in the sampling distribution. If I did it that way, I would see that the standard error for the sample size of 2 equals 1.3. Another way for me to find the standard error for the sample size of 2 would be to use the standard error formula. If I wanted to use the standard error formula, the first step would be to find the standard deviation of the population. I could find the standard deviation of the population by doing this work right here. After doing all of this work, I can see that the standard deviation of the 4 people in the population is 2.24. Once I know what the population standard deviation is, I can just plug it into the standard error formula right here. And I would also plug in the population size of 4 and the sample size of 2. The sample size is 2 because I'm trying to find the standard error for the sample size of 2. After I go through all of this work right here, I would get 1.3 as my answer. So both methods would tell me that the standard error for the sample size of 2 is 1.3. Now what if I wanted to find the standard error for the sample size of 3? One way to do it would be to sort out the population into all possible samples of 3 people and calculate the mean of each sample, and then list out the sample means like I did here, and then go through all of this work of calculating the standard deviation of all of the 4 sample means. If I went through all of that work, I would see that the standard error for the sample size of 3 equals 0.7. But another way for me to find the standard error for the sample size of 3 would be to just use the standard error formula. If I wanted to use the standard error formula for the sample size of 3, I would pretty much do the same work that I did here. The only difference is I would change the sample size of 2 to 3. And then I would go through all of this work over again, and then I would end up getting 0.7 as my answer. I would get the same answer that I would have had if I had gone through all of this other work and found the standard error using this longer method. So basically, there's 2 ways to find the standard error. You can sort out the population into all possible samples of your sample size, calculate the mean of each sample, and then calculate the standard deviation of all of the sample means. Or you can just use the standard error formula. And like I said earlier, in an actual study, you would need to use the standard error formula because in an actual study, when you're sampling from a big population, it's not possible to actually collect data from all possible samples and then calculate the mean of each possible sample